When I first watched Mary Poppins, I thought that I was going to be able to fly with that umbrella.
I feel like anyone who hasn't physically tried to fly just can't be my friend. I just want to put that on the record.
Oh, that's good. All right. Well, I did. I was like,
I
I'm
just
going to
don't
jump.
know what kind of relationship we can have together if
Right?
you've never tried to fly.
I'm Mary Poppins.
Yeah.
Woof. I just, dude, I think I broke my arm. Hey, I'm Armando Leduc, producer, film actor, and owner of Leduc Entertainment. I have chosen a life off the beaten path and wanted to find others that are doing the same. Spaghetti on the Wall is a show based on all of the years that I've thrown spaghetti on the wall and nurtured what stuck. We will share fun stories, ideas, tips, tricks, and more. Welcome to Spaghetti on the Wall. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, depending on when you are consuming this beautiful podcast called Spaghetti on the Wall. Today, they didn't want us together. They didn't want us to be great.
They didn't want us to be great.
We have tried, I don't know how many times, to get this podcast rolling, and I think this is, the fourth time?
Yeah, fourth or fifth, but nobody likes a quitter.
Nobody likes a quitter, and we stayed with it, and you are here, and I'm so happy about it. Huff, everyone, from San Diego.
From San Diego and Bay Area, actually the whole state of California.
Have you ever left? You ever left, or you just always stayed there?
No, actually, I'm from Houston, Texas originally, but at 17, I left home to get to home, to California, and I don't know what happened. I've always had a very strong affinity with the state of California, and I just knew that's where I needed to go, so I did that at 17. Had a few... got homesick for Texas and went back to Texas and got sick of home, came back to California. So back and forth since 17, but I've been here now, I think over 20 years, something like that. So California's
great.
Definitely home.
California's awesome. So you're an attorney. You've been an attorney for how long?
13 years now.
Do you like it?
I do. I love it. I'm an oddball for sure. I've known that I would be doing exactly what I'm doing since I was 7 years old, so 41 years ago. I didn't know I'd be on a very cool podcast with you, but I knew I'd be in the neighborhood. So that was always the goal and the mission. I went into law enforcement and became a police officer and ultimately a patrol supervisor, and that was after I was a reserve deputy and a 911 dispatcher, in order to pay for school and all of that kind of good stuff. But law is just what I'm hardwired to do, and quite frankly, I'm not very good at anything else, to be honest. I can't dance. My voice isn't bad. I can sing. I used to be able to sing, so now. And I don't have any hobbies, so this is what I do.
Tell me a cool 911 story.
My favorite 911 story, it's not, cutting edge necessarily or death, doom, and destruction, but I used to patrol a neighborhood named Sable Chase in South Central Harris County Precinct 4. And I think I was a supervisor at the time. I was either Deputy Huff or Corporal Huff. And a friend of mine who became a friend because I made a scene where she and her then ex-husband were having an altercation in the street, which I was able to quell, and we became great friends after that. And so she has children. Two of her daughters were at a swimming pool in the neighborhood, and they had an altercation with other children. And so, this was before I transitioned, so I was Aunt René. I'm an openly trans male. I was Aunt René at the time, and she said, "I'm going to call Aunt René." And so she dialed 911 and said, "I need Aunt René at the swimming pool." And it just so happened that I was on duty, and it just so happened that I was the closest unit nearby, and it just so happened that she called 911, requested Aunt René, and actually got Aunt René. Now, I had to clear up for her the confusion that you can call 911 from anywhere and Aunt René will appear, but I always thought that was a pretty cool synchronicity, and it worked out great that we were able to get the kids squared away and explain explained to them, not to use racial epithets to other children and things like that. And it all got smoothed out. But so, not a murder scene or anything that's necessarily, high level criminal justice. But I thought that was one of the cutest things I've ever seen. And they really thought that you could dial 911 and I would just appear like Mary Poppins. So
right on. That's funny. I see a movie where it's kind of like Mary Poppins, but it's a police officer.
Right, there you go. Police Poppins. Nobody
Police
wants that
Poppins.
kind of pop-in. Police Poppins.
Police Poppins.
Please don't have the police pop in. We don't want that.
You heard it here first, folks. It reminds me of a story of an apartment we used to live at, and next door it was a wife and husband who were just going off on each other at like 1 o'clock in the morning. I mean, top of their lungs screaming, and I'm like, I got to go over there. And my wife's like, no, don't go over there. Don't get involved. I was like, we got to do something. So I knocked on the door. Woman opened, butt naked.
Of course.
Number one, who argues butt naked? Just curious. Like who's arguing?
Who wants leverage would be my first thought. I mean, I feel like you're winning that argument with me. I don't know.
I was just like, what's happening right now? And the guy comes out and what's up, man? And I was like, hey, man, I think, why don't you come outside, and we'll just take a little break. I get it. Y'all are, I think maybe just some separation. You know what I mean? Man, and then close the door. Yep. He comes out. And I was like, hey, man, I'm not trying to tell you how to do your, how to live your life. I just thought I'd come out and just, kind of support, the separation for a second. I really appreciate it, man. He was going crazy. Just letting me know. I was like, dude, I know it. I know how it goes. I'm not judging. Trust me, I'm not judging. So, but I always thought it was so weird that he was not naked. He had boxers on, but that's it. And she was butt naked.
Yep.
Screaming. Yep.
I will. I'm gonna give you unsolicited advice because that's what I'm good for. I can't help it. Thank God I'm in the right profession where people actually pay me for my opinions. Because Lord knows I'd give them for free.
Right.
So anyway, I side with your wife. Domestic disturbances are the last thing that you should go to alone, even if you're a police officer armed with backup when you press the radio for backup. You asked for a story. I'll give you another one that's not a cute story. I made a scene, domestic violence, that was an in progress, which means it's 911 call. I was the first unit on the scene. I was the only unit on the scene, and there was an electric storm going on, so it was interfering with radio traffic. I walked up to the front door that had an oval glass piece in the center, and I look in, and I see lots of blood smeared across, and handprints smeared across the wall of the living room, right? All I know is that there's an altercation between a male and a female. So I'm backing up, I'm backpedaling now, to get back towards my patrol car, and I'm leaning over, 4 Charles 10, 4 Charles 10, Charles 10, go ahead. Charles 10, I need immediate assistance, I need backup. Ma'am, we can't hear you. Repeat again, we can't hear you. And I look up, and a black male comes out of the house and all knives look like they're 30 feet long when they're coming at you raised. Jesus. He was coming at me just like you see, Mike Myers in the movie, right? Like, except he didn't have a mask on. Blood dripping down from his hand. I'm again still backing up, backpedaling a little bit. Now, 15 to 22 feet, someone has an edged weapon, aggressing you. That's a shoot. Neutralize the threat situation. I was within my rights to end his life at that point in time for my safety. I told God there's a leaf falling from a tree, and it literally was like you see in the movies. Like, I couldn't see anything else except tunnel vision. I could only see him, and there was a tree to the left of me. I can see this in my mind's eye like it happened yesterday, literally, and this was probably 1999. And so I told God, I said, And I'm telling him, sir, drop the knife. Sir, drop the knife. And I always thought in the police academy that I would be like, get on the ground right now, right? And have all of this kind of, energy with it. No. Sir, please drop the knife. Sir. I mean, my voice was cracking. It didn't sound anything like this hero that I had in mind.
Did you have your gun drawn?
Of course. I had 6-hour 229 40 caliber beaded right on his center mass, which is right here. It was time. One of us was going to have to go. And so I see the leaf falling, and it's floating, and it's static energy. Still nobody on the radio. All I can hear is Rain. She was the dispatcher, Rayn. Rain Herzog was the dispatcher at the time, and she said, all units, hold traffic, emergency traffic only for Fort Charles 10. I need all units rolling towards Charles 10 right now. Meanwhile, it seems like forever. This guy is still there. I'm standing there, but it feels like everything's frozen, and I told God, if that leaf hits the ground before his knife does, I'm sending one to you. And then he dropped the knife.
Oh,
so I put him in custody. I had to put him in prone position. Long story short, get him in the back seat. We get some more units on the scene, search the residence. The wife and the child were hiding in a doghouse in the backyard. He had tried to stab the wife because she whipped his daughter with an extension cord. And when she went to block the knife, it slit through her hand. And then the fight continued through the living room, which is how all of the blood ended up on the wall. They both went to jail that night in my patrol car. So that's a story.
Jesus. I couldn't.
And then once we had to chase a guy who only had Nikes and socks on through Memorial subdivision in Northwest Harris County. All he had on was socks and his tennis shoes. And when I opened we had to hog tie him. Unfortunately, there was no way to get him contained, and he was a definite danger to himself and others. If I remember correctly, he was high on PCP, and when I opened the back door to try to calm him, because usually I was the one to de-escalate critical incidents, a soothing voice and these kinds of things. So I opened it up and he said, "Mom?" So yeah, he was out of it. And I'm in all my uniform, badge, gun glory, but he's naked, hogtied in the back seat of a patrol car, and thought I was his mother. So
PCP, is that like is that a powder?
It comes in various forms, but yes, most often, it shouldn't be ingested at all by many opinions, but I've heard it's fatal when snorted. So I don't know all the ins and outs of PCP, but I can tell you about their effects. And not.
And what
good.
are the effects? Like just you lose
Total
your mind.
loss, total disconnect from reality. You think you can fly, and are willing to try from high elevations with no parachute or mattress below or safety net below.
Yeah. I always wonder, when they're talking about drugs and people that think that they can fly, I'm like, what drug is that? Because I don't even know what drug that is. To make you think that you can like fly.
Yeah, yeah.
Talking about Mary Poppins, it goes back, but because it definitely makes sense what I'm about to tell you. But when I first watched Mary Poppins, I thought that I was going to be able to fly with that umbrella, and I jumped off of the top of a slide, which was like
I feel like anyone who hasn't physically tried to fly just can't be my friend. I just want to put that on the record.
Oh, that's good. All right. Well, I did. I was like,
I just don't
jump.
know what kind of relationship we can have together if you've never tried to fly.
I'm Mary Poppins.
Yeah.
Woof. I just dude. I think I broke my arm.
Did you break anything?
Oh yeah, I broke my arm.
Yeah.
My wife, my mom was super proud of me at that day. She was like, "Oh, my son, he's so smart." So
I love it.
But that was my Mary Poppins story. So that is, how do you not be scarred by some of the crap you've seen, or are you? And do you?
That's a better. That's a better question. Are you or how are you scarred? I don't know how other people, if they make it through unscathed and unscarred. My uncle was a deputy sheriff for Harris County Sheriff's Department, I think for 30 years. And most of the old heads are long time, full career to retirement. I don't know how they do it. They're cut from a different cloth. I, on the other hand, definitely have battle scars. A lot of it, folks talk about the off color or sick, even cop humor. A lot of times, humor is what gets you through the day, and you have to find ways to laugh about things that most people wouldn't laugh about in order to cope. It's a coping mechanism. So, have I eaten sandwiches with lungs and brain, gray matter at my feet? I have, not directly at my feet because it would soil the crime scene, but not because I'm not able to eat while I look at pieces of organs that are on the ground, because that's happened. I've been to decapitations, I've been to executions. I've seen dismemberments, and I've heard reports and read reports that to this day, even though you're asking me about being scarred, because I care about you not being scarred, I don't share the facts of the story. I just tell you that I've heard and seen some of the most deplorable things that are unfathomable, that of human atrocities, right? And only my desire to be of service and be a problem solver. It's just, I yearn to do it. It's just it's a blessing that I get paid for doing it. But I was a cop. My annual salary when I started, I think, was $27,000 for the year. And on the year that I made $32,000, boy, I thought I was rolling in the dough. That was big money. And then I worked extra jobs full time. So I think one year I might have gotten close to $60,000 for the year. And then I was definitely a wealthy police officer. That was big time right there. And so my point is that when I say I do it for free, I was a reserve deputy too, which means for free. So I didn't get paid for it. The coping with it, I think the only way that it continues to work for me is that I don't know how to live differently in terms of being of service, but it does take its toll. And even as an attorney now, particularly because I'm who you come tell when you don't want anyone else to know. So the things that people confide in me are secrets that I will take to my grave unless you come to me and say, I'm planning on committing this harm that results in great bodily injury or death. I'm obligated and I have a duty to maintain confidences. And even under those circumstances, there's a great analysis that has to go into whether I'm required to report or even allowed to report based on the circumstances. So it's a lot. And I love it. I wouldn't have it any other way.
we've hung out at several masterminds together, and you're such a light.
Oh man, thank you.
Yeah, well, there's some people that are just bright. They shine bright. You're definitely someone that has this just brightness about them. And now having heard, some of these stories, it's just like how, when I catch myself, complaining about something, I'll have to remember you so that I'm not, hey.
I have to tell you, there's a synergy there, and I'm here now because I see the exact same thing in you. And I bet you have stories. Everybody walks in, got to walk in their own shoes. And I bet you there's a pebble or two in your shoe that wouldn't feel too good to my heel if I were in them. So, we all got stories to swap. And one day on a longer conversation, I'll let you dig all into my traumatic upbringing. And then you'll really be like, now, why isn't he drowning puppies and tearing butterfly wings off? I'm not sure myself, but I'm grateful that I don't.
Yeah, well, look. What book was I reading? The Servant. You ever read The Servant
I don't think I have.
It's an amazing leadership book,
Okay.
written by. I'm going to tell you who it is because I really think it's just a great book that everybody should really read. The Servant by James Hunter, right?
Okay, I'm looking it up right now.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
But, it really is about leading from a servant mentality and not necessarily like being the servant of people, succumbing to what their whims are and what they want. It's more about how do you lead from what people need, right? And like what's good for them, right? Like they may want, to eat a whole king cake, right? But that's not what they need, right? And so it's really, it's really about that whole concept. But the reason I'm bringing it up is that, it talks about how part of the conversation is how do you take all of the bad things that are happening to you, right? And all of those things, and how do you learn from them, and how do you use that in order to serve, which is something that you just said, right? Like, you want to be of help, you want to serve, right? And I think that. Go ahead.
I'm sorry. Go ahead. Sorry.
No worries. I think, but to your point, like, I think maybe part of the reason why you're such a jovial and positive person is maybe you're taking that stuff and figuring out how I can use it to serve.
Transmuting it. Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Speaks a lot about servant leadership. And while I haven't read this book, which I will read, service above self, and I modify it with a balance because I had a tendency to put service above self and completely forget myself. And that's not sustainable, right? I found that out the hard way. So now, service above self, but also paying attention to self to make sure, there's nothing to give of myself if there's no me. So secure your own air mask first and then go about the business of helping everyone else. I had to teach myself that lesson. But I think that I definitely want to share with you, my life has been shaped and formed by watching insurmountable obstacles being overcome. And my mom raised me that way. So my mom's Irish German, she's white, and my dad's African American. My grandfather, who's passed away now, my maternal grandfather, my mom's dad, at the time was a raging racist and disowned her for being pregnant with a black man's baby. I later became one of his favorite grandchildren. We sang Lena Horne and Frank Sinatra and listened to Mormon Tabernacle. He was in the symphony chorale. So was my grandmother. He played piano, and he would play piano, and I would sing Lena Horne and Frank Sinatra, and all of the good oldies. And I later was gifted his 8-track. A big 8-track stereo system and all the 8 tracks and the record players that went with it and the old speakers with the vacuum in it that have to warm up before you can listen to music. So that's why when people look at me like, this Pollyanna guy, or, he's living on a different planet, well, maybe a different vibrational frequency, because I know better. You can't tell me what can't be overcome. I saw it with my own eyes. I experienced it in my own family. I was literally the black sheep of the family, and I feel nothing but love from my family members. There are still some family members who have significant others that make it into a situation where I don't visit their home because that significant other is an active racist now. But I choose to focus on where we can come together and what are the problems we can all agree on. Like, everyone wants to go home alive. I don't care if you're a Republican, a Democrat, Tea Party. I don't know anyone who I know who doesn't want to go home alive and doesn't want their kids to go home alive. Let's start there for problem solving. We can talk about pro-life, pro-choice another day. We can talk about fill in the blank dichotomy that we can't close the gap on the aisle on another day. But the reason that I think I speak with such passion and authority about bridging gaps is because my whole life has been spent bridging gaps.
Hallelujah. What a talking point. What a talking point. I love it. What are you running for office soon or what?
Possibly.
I could see it.
Yeah,
I can see it.
I'm exploring right now. In fact, I've been speaking with political consultants and one specific campaign manager. And if I can find a place where I'm actually of service, of meaningful service to the public at large, which is just an extension of what I've done as a police officer, 911 dispatcher, patrol supervisor, United States Judicial Law Clerk for the trial court, 26 years of public service, right, in the law, and specifically criminal justice. If there's a place for me where I can be of more service, then I'm here for that. If not, I don't know that I'm necessarily a politician. I'm going to tell it like I see it, even if it isn't the way they want it delivered, and I don't know how popular that'll make me. But as long as I leave and everybody knows that I'm a truth teller to the best of my ability, that'll be what I stand on. That's
amazing. How would someone, and I've got a client who's a councilman in Baton Rouge, also an orthopedic surgeon, and I've asked him this question too. And I'll pose the same question: is how do you not allow the political life, right? Like once you're into politics, you're in politics, right? And so I feel like it's such a wave that you have to like overcome, right? In order to like stand steadfast and really stick to what your vision, mission, core values are as a person. Right. You know what I mean? In order to like cut through that noise and not be affected by that wave, right? Like what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. It absolutely is a political machine, and kind of similar to being trained in the police academy and thinking that I was going to come out and say, "Get on the ground right now, sir." But in reality, it was, "Sir, sir." I think that I would be mistaken to believe that I'm just going to stand my ground and I'm not going to be affected at all by this political machine. It's a wave. In fact, it's a tsunami, and you better be one hell of a surfer if you're getting out there on the waves, right? And so I believe the actual answer is it takes a large degree of compassion, a large degree of finesse, and willingness to listen to all sides. Where I think that the mistake has happened and continues to happen is that everyone holds their position and then passes each other like ships in the night. When I ran for city council in Yuma, Arizona, I went to the Tea Party meetings, I went to the Republican meetings, and I went to the Democratic meetings. I was running as a Democrat. Was I nervous when I went into that big church where everyone had a gun on their hip except me, and the bottles of water labels had been changed and said "No Obama water," and my biracial self looked pretty, and I was much thinner at the time, looked very much like Obama, had the haircut and the whole deal, and I walked in unarmed into an Arizona church where every pickup truck in the parking lot had a "Don't Tread on Me" sticker on the back of it. The whole time I'm mumbling to God, "Why do you keep making me come to these places?" And I left with an invitation to Thanksgiving dinner and a bunch of new voters who voted for me. I made it to the general election, and with Republican support, with John McCain's support, with Democratic support, and Tea Party support, I made it to the general. Unfortunately, I had some personal drama in my life, which led me to withdraw from the race, because if I run, I'm here for your issues, not for my issues, right? And so now that I'm in a much better place in my life, I'm taking another look at it. But again, I don't need a new career. I've had so many careers in my life that I'm not looking for a new job. If there's a way for me to take what I've learned and to take my training and to take my unique skill set and bring it to the people and that's what the people want, I'll absolutely go.
I love it. In California?
Oh, for sure. Yeah, California.
We're coming to the end of the episode.
I knew it would go fast.
It goes really fast. It goes really fast. I could talk to you all day. Such a pleasure. It's always so much fun hanging out with you, at these masterminds and stuff. I'm so glad we finally got you on the podcast because your brain and your outlook and your light, it's just really such a blessing. I think I'd vote for you.
I appreciate it.
I'd vote for you.
Well, I tell you what, I'm going to write that down on my spreadsheet because that's step one is finding out if I'm in a place of reality or if I'm just in La La Land somewhere. I'm willing to explore, but my feelings won't be hurt either way. If the popular consensus is, come on, we want you, Huff, here I come. But if it's not, I've got a pretty sweet gig where I am as Huff of Huff Legal, and I'm not mad if I'm there too. So either way, it's a win.
That's awesome. And tell everybody where they can find you and where they can follow you.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks. I definitely want to get that out there. The best way to find out about me is www.hufflegal.com. That's my last name, Huff like Frank, F like Frank, legal.com. I'm Get Huff #1 on Instagram, where I am mostly, and Get Attorney Huff on Facebook. But yeah, the website's the best place to start. And if you have any questions, there's a chat widget on our website, or you can email info@hufflegal.com.
That's amazing. Guys, Huff's great. I'm so glad you came on. I'm so glad we finally got it scheduled. It was three times we struck out, but we got it on the fourth one. So I'm so glad.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me, and I'd be happy to be back anytime.
Let's do it. All right. And guys, that was Spaghetti on the Wall, brought to you by Leduc Entertainment. For all of your social media marketing needs, videos, social media, we got you. And you can always watch Spaghetti on the Wall on YouTube and catch it on Spotify, Google, everywhere where you can catch a podcast. And reach out to us if you guys need any help with that stuff, LeducEntertainment.com. See y'all next time.